So I had a question for you guys. I was in running Adventures League. This is the precursor to the episode. Just FYI for those listening. The guy across from me working on the thing, he kept saying TBH, IDK, TBH, IDK, TBH, IDK. And I have no idea what the hell he was saying.
That is child speak for, to be honest, I don't know.
Then why are you trying to explain it if you don't know?
I don't know.
Oh, dad joke on Father's Day.
I don't know. All right. You done?
Yeah, I'm done. Shut up.
Okay, terrible. Good. Anyway, we're the Grumpy Dungeon Masters. We are not the Bad Dad Joke podcast. And I'm Jay. I'm joined with Christian, Christopher, and Dan. I think I got the names right. Say hi, guys.
So, hi, guys.
Hello there.
God damn it. Whatever. We're here.
Anything to break him. I'm okay with this. As long as he suffers with us.
So let me tell you who broke.
Nope. Okay, so this weekend coming up, I guess the 21st. The 21st, which is Saturday of June, is Free RPG Day.
Yay!
So, everybody's favorite time of the year. That way, it's like Christmas for role players, where you go out and get free role playing stuff.
All right. So you want to know what's in the kit this year?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. There's Pathfinder. This is off the top of my head. I'm not looking at any lists. So this is what's stuck in my head as decent things that are there. There's a Pathfinder and Starfinder adventure, which normally happens. Loki 5e Battle Maps has a module and thing. And usually those are really good to run because you can just pick them up and run them. There is a DCC adventure in there.
Yeah, Castle of White Rock.
Yeah. Level Up 5e, not Level Up 5e. Some other normal brand that's been in there time and time again is there. There's a Transformers Power Rangers module.
What?
Yeah, you want that.
Yeah, and instead of just giving... Okay, in previous years, they've had those things as well, but it's always been information pamphlets, never actually modules to run. One year they just gave you out folders, which is neat, but it doesn't make you play your game, so why bother? So there's an actual adventure for them this year. It's a Renegade D20 system.
Renegade.
Well, that was a TV show with Lorenzo Lamas. It was awesome.
It sure was.
There's your throwback.
TV show.
It's definitely a TV show.
Yeah.
What's a TV show?
Streaming before there was streaming.
It was a streaming show. You could you can't stream it, which is why the DVDs are expensive as all hell. Look it up. I've sold them before.
Renegade?
Yeah, the complete series will run you $120-$140. Yeah, it's ridiculous because you can't stream it. None of the streaming services have the show.
So for other general swag, there's a few nice shiny D20s. There's a few D6s here and there. There's blind boxes that you can buy right now at your local LGS that kind of has pins of monsters throughout the years, first, second, third, fourth, or first, second, third, and fifth edition. They kind of skip fourth, but fourth and fifth designs are pretty similar. Where you can get a beholder and it could be any of those era. So that pin set, there's 3 Hanks from the animated show, Hank the Ranger. There's 3 of those. So I'm stealing one of those. I'm wearing it all day.
So wait, there's 3 different versions of Hank as a pin?
No, there's only one version of Hank as a pin. The blind boxes could be up to 4 different variants, first, second, and third
and fifth. Yeah, I heard that.
Third and fifth. And there's also special rare pins too. But the Hank is just the pin. It's really big. It's 3 inches around, made of metal. It's pretty solid. How do you
get that?
Just
free RPG stuff?
I'm going to take one, and then whomever purchases the first and like second round of RPG books, I'll probably give it to them for free. I'm
Okay,
allowed to hand
hold on.
them out my own discretion.
I have a lot of confusion here. Is this just a thing your store only is doing, or is this
No,
a free RPG?
It's in the free RPG Day box. Yeah,
Who's giving this out? Who's handing out these pins?
me. Well, WizKids.
No, okay, WizKids. Thank you. That's what I was trying to get at.
WizKids is also producing 10 Emperor miniatures ready to paint.
Emperor miniatures. So like
from Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about. I thought you were talking Star Wars.
So I've never actually been to a free RPG. Can somebody back the truck up and explain it? Because Waples is just like speaking a mile a minute about I don't know what the fuck. So do you get like all this shit just for showing up for free RPG day if you're in line until they run out of supplies? Like just a whole bag of swag?
There's not really much swag, but it's just there's a lot of different modules. So there's like 20 to 30 different modules.
I mean, you've been talking about pins and unpainted Emperor from Baldur's Gate 3 and shit. So
okay, so
obviously there is.
As the guy who has only done this twice, because Chris lives this shit. Let me explain how it works. Then you get his version.
Yeah, talk slow like I've never been to free RPG day before.
Yeah, like you're brand new to this. Okay, because I've only done it a couple of times. I've gone to 2 different locations over 2 years and done this. The first time I showed up, I don't even remember where the store was or what state I was even in at the time. There was a table sitting out with a whole bunch of free modules. They had Pathfinder, they had D&D, they had etc. And I grabbed a few of them. But you could have just, I could have just taken one of each of them. And I would assume when they run out, they're out. Last year, I really wanted the Dungeon Crawl Classic stuff, so I had to drive an hour and a half to South Alabama, nowhere near where I live, just to find those modules. We had called ahead the day before just to verify that they were going to have them and that they would hold them for us. And we got there, and they did. And then we bought some things while we were there.
So you didn't have to actually be there in line. You were able to like call ahead and be like, "Hey, dude, I want this thing. Could you hold it for me?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're cool with stuff."
I was able to, we were able to, as a small town. It's the local gaming store.
Fair. I'm going to go ahead and guess the 3 or 4 level up games participating in Greater Atlanta area will be completely swamped. So I'm probably gonna try to get there like an hour before they open.
Yeah, in your case,
I saw pictures of lines from last year. I'm like, that doesn't look right. Okay.
Yeah, if we hadn't called ahead, they probably would not have had any.
Yeah, the box that you get.
There's lines at level up, Dan.
That's what I saw. Yeah.
Oh gosh. All right.
Did you not make it out there last year?
I did not go last year. So this will be my first year trying to.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm just saying, I saw pictures of lines from last year. I'm like, that's interesting, but I mean, level up in Duluth is massive. It's like it's like a gaming mall.
Yeah, that's where I usually go.
And the one in Duluth, or the one in one up there in like Johns Creek or something like that?
I go to the one in Duluth. There is one in like Alpharetta, Johns Creek, but it's much smaller.
I might see you there
then.
So essentially, when the participating retailers, it's like $200 to buy a single box that comes with all the stuff that's in it. There's a bunch of modules every year, and depending on who wants to participate, there can be various levels of swag that can be handed out for free, or however the store deems appropriate. Every store is different. Some require a purchase. This year, I've run it for the past 3 years at Synergy Gamers here in Charleston, and this year is the least amount of swag in the box compared to modules. There's more modules than there is swag, so there's not much to give away. But there are lots of modules, so the modules are free, and people who purchase stuff at the store, I'll give them the badges and whatnot. For the miniatures, I contacted one of our Warhammer guys who does a free painting class at the Warhammer Synergy store called Heroes and Champions. And he's showing up to just paint miniatures with people all day. And we're supplying the paint and the paint brushes and all that. So essentially, whomever shows up and wants to paint an Emperor Mini can show up and paint an Emperor Mini. We're also doing a cosplay contest. and I'm doing a panel by myself because none of you showed up about how to
I don't
D.
think I was invited.
Everybody was side point. So I'll be doing that and kind of running the whole day. We scheduled games for D&D, Shadow Dark, Pirate Borg, and a couple other types of games.
Who's running Fireboard?
Me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Be a nice good stab in the dark. And we'll just see how it goes. And then whoever wants to run games throughout the day, like I said, the modules you get, some of them take a lot of setup. And some of them don't. Like I said, the Loki battle maps company, their module usually has like the minis and the map and the module that you could run pretty easily without any setup. But like the Goodman Games and the Chaosium, those usually take some setup and read ahead. Obojima, I was gonna say the Totoro company, but the Miyazaki inspired 5e setting, they got a free module this year. Like I said, and there's a bunch of just other companies trying to make it big that gave stuff out too. Well, Phidias is there, so there's a lot of stuff that's gonna be there for free. But like I said, the swag is really limited this year, so there's not much free stuff.
Well, Waples, since you are actually DMing and doing a Q&A at your local game store, why don't you go ahead and plug it and tell people where you're going to be in case people want to show up?
I did plug it. I'm going to be at Synergy.
Yeah, they already know.
That doesn't mean anything. Where?
Synergy Gamers in Goose Creek, Charleston.
There you go.
From 12 to store close.
There you go. Thank you very much.
And
that's in South Carolina, by the way.
Yeah. It's going to be a big day. And I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed there wasn't much swag. One cool thing that they did this year is they definitely need to do this next year too. Regardless of how successful I think it is this year, they definitely give it a couple of years for this to go. Essentially, they've included this like little pamphlet for the organizer to basically put certain modules in certain locations for people to find, but also gets the players walking around, or the customers walking around the store to look at the stuff inside the store. It's called like, you have to fight the dragon, essentially.
That's called marketing is what that's called.
Yeah, it's called marketing, but the other thing is called Fight the Dragon. And if you complete the whole thing, you get a sticker that says you fought the dragon at, free RPG day. And every place you go, you get to scan a QR code, and I think you can get some stuff online as well too. Like the first part of the like pseudo adventures, you have to like walk in the door and scan the QR code, and then that sends you to some other location in the store. A couple of the other locations they have is like near the Catan board game, in the darkest corner of the store, furthest away from the registers, things like that. And I just thought that was neat. That should at least get people walking around the store and having fun. And
it's like Pokemon Go for role players.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are upset that I'm doing this too, because they just want to use the game store for running Magic, which I understand. That's, the big money maker. None of the employees or the owners, mind you, the customers just don't want to have any RPGs going on that day.
Oh no.
I'm like, oh no, other people doing other things.
Yeah, in a gaming store, where they're trying to make money.
Yeah. But the owner is definitely real hyped for it. He'll be giving away other door prizes and stuff like that. Like I said, we have a cosplay contest, so there'll be rewards for that just from the store's perspective.
Yeah, and every store is going to be different. Like Xenergy's pretty big store, especially around Charleston. I would imagine some of the places around Atlanta with you guys are going to do some wild stuff. Whereas locally here, you can come in, you can get your free RPGs in like 4 places in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that it is, but there is a big cost for the owners, So you kind of want to make sure that people get enough of the stuff,
Yeah, like when we went and got the stuff last year, we also spent a couple $100 there, so we didn't
That'd be
have to.
nice.
We didn't have to. But if I'm going to go down there and look at Dungeon Crawl Classics stuff on the shelf, I'm going to walk out with some Dungeon Crawl Classics stuff.
I mean, you better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last year I bought Mutant Crawl Classics. So
Yeah, I try to buy some stuff for the store to stock up on ahead of time, but like I just couldn't get any answers for things. Like I was trying to get the Shadow Dark before this thing happened, and like that turned into a mess. I wanted to have physical copies in the store before next week, but
yeah, but it's it can be kind of hard to do. It's a very small company with like one employee.
Yeah. Is a person in the midst of dealing with a massively successful Kickstarter.
Yeah, and that's that not growing fast enough sometimes can be a problem.
Yep.
You don't want. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not going to second guess successful game designers, so
no.
Let's move on.
Word. Okay, so I think we need to talk about the psionics from the Unearthed Arcana that we haven't talked about on here.
I feel like I feel like we mentioned we were going to talk about it next week, and now it's next week, so I think it's really time.
We've talked about it for the past 6 weeks.
I don't think we've ever talked about Psionics in any.
We have.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm quite positive.
Anyway, so there was an Unearthed Arcana for Psionics.
You motherfuckers.
Yeah. First off, I love Unearthed Arcana. Second off, I love Psionics. So let's do it.
Yeah, no, we can talk psionics though, because Dan apparently found an old Dragon magazine where they talk about first edition psionics.
I sure did, and it is Dragon Magazine number 78. Probably one of the first times. I'm sure it's not the first time it was mentioned, but it was the first time that I ever saw it really in depth mentioned in the early 80s of D&D. And I'm not like talking like one person making one article. Let me just read off some of these articles here.
It's a whole magazine of them, yeah.
It's the whole magazine is basically just psionics. And the first one is called Mind Games, Psionics in the AD&D World. Psionics is different, and that's putting it rather mildly, by Arthur Collins. And then there is, let's see here. I mean, that article in itself is about.
Well, yeah, I think the sage advice. I think the sage advice also is all about psionics.
Yeah, and incidentally, this also has a great advertisement for Ravenloft when it first was released back in I think '83. So that's pretty cool too. There's a sage advice all about psionics and how they work. And this is, of course, when you could randomly roll to be a latent psionicist as well. Which lasted through ADD's second edition too. So that was kind of cool. I think I had that come up once in a game I ever played back in the 80s and 90s. And then there's a article called "Overhauling the System: A 3-Part Remedy for the Problems with Psionics." Because of course, psionics have always been a problem in some way. And another article,
always have been.
And now the psionicist, a class that moves psionics into the mainstream. And like it gives you a full AD&D write-up for a psionicist all the way to 20th level. It gives you the cool level titles you had back in AD&D. Gives you all the special abilities they had. It gives you an expanded list of disciplines. It gives you psionic points, which, like I said, since we haven't actually talked about the Unearthed Arcana, okay, we have talked about it a few times. A lot of the stuff that they go over in here, I feel like the people who wrote that psionicist class for the Unearthed Arcana had never read this or knew about it or ever even picked up a first or second edition book, to be quite honest.
I get that feeling that's a lot of the current designers, aside from the higher ups, because like I said, with Perkins and Crawford leaving, there's like only one or two old school curmudgeons left.
Yeah,
I'm sure they
James Wyatt and Wes Schneider have been around for a while.
Yeah, And I'm sure they picked up the complete Psionic's handbook. I'm sure they picked up, Dark Sun and looked through it and mined that for all the data and information they could and see what they can adapt to 5e. And I'm sure somebody in the corporate world is being like, no, it needs to be more like spells, which, of course, makes your hands tied. But they really like in this one Dragon magazine go through most of the problems and positives of having psionics in your game. And I just found it interesting that I just kind of randomly found it. And also it has an excellent ecology of the Mind Flayer, which I have not read in depth about enough for us to actually do an ecology and then do the follow through all the editions. But
Have
ecology of
we
the Mind
never
Flayer,
have we never done an ecology of the Mind Flayer before?
I
Nope.
don't think so.
No.
Oh yeah, that's
Also,
definitely
I
going to
do
happen.
want to point
Not tonight,
though that even in this article in Dragon, when you're talking about somebody said magic, some of the powers, literally like while I'm looking at this one, when your minor discipline lights, you can use this to duplicate the effect of these spells. Fairy Fire, Dancing Lights, or the Light spell. And that is it. That is what the power does. It allows you to cast one of an already existing spell.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to get to. On page 70 of this Dragon magazine, the article name is "Spells Can Be Psionic Too: How and Why Magic Resembles Mental Powers."
Yeah.
And it goes through spells that are basically have some sort of thing that is pretty similar to a psionic ability that you could basically sub out one for the other, which is honestly, like I said, this book kind of goes over a lot of the problems with psionics, which is, is it spells? Is it not spells? Does counter spelling work? Does dispel magicking work? Do I have to dispel psionics to get rid of it? Does mind blank work against it? Who knows? And it's just one of those things like there's never really been a good solution for it other than you have a game that has primarily psionics and no magic, or primarily magic and very little psionics. And
Yeah.
they don't really cross the streams that much.
It's not a hard thing to determine, though. It's one of two things: either your psionics act as spells, or it doesn't. If it acts as spells, then all spell protections and all spells, etc., affect it exactly as if it was a spell. If it doesn't, then spells have no purpose against it, and vice versa. Psionics also wouldn't be able to stop spells.
Uh-huh.
It's not a complicated scenario there.
It is one of the big problems with psionics is that they never seem to be. You don't create the game with psionics in mind. It's always been an add-on or an optional rule or like a little sidebar. Like in the player's handbooks in first edition D, it's an optional part. In the DMG, they talk about it as an optional thing. In second edition, it was an add-on. And because it's an add-on and it's tacked on to it, it just never finds a great place in the system where you're either having to do this, like even in the DMG, it's sort of, and they mentioned in these articles in this Dragon magazine where they were hoping the Dungeon Master's Guide for first edition would solve the problem of psionics, and it did not. And so like they're like, okay, well, what was opted in the player's handbook for first edition left a lot of questions and issues. The Dungeon Master's Guide did not really solve those issues, so now we're into Dragon magazine of people doing their takes on how to solve them. And this is like they're in here, but there will continue to be Dragon magazine articles on this year after year after year, because the problem is that the base game isn't designed with this, and so when you add on a whole new system, you end up in the issue of, well, how does it work with everything else?
Yeah, I remember. So this magazine was from 1983, and they were talking about the quote unquote issues with it. I remember when I started playing in 1990, they were still talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never really thought it was that complicated of a thing to handle. Me as a game master, I made it work. Psionics are psionics, magic is magic. They are not the same thing. And I never had problems with it when people used them because they operated on a different spectrum.
The problem is that some of the add-on was like, hey, your psionics can do this to magic. And you're like, okay. Well, they do interact as per the rules here. So
if a specific ability says it will affect magic, or okay, then it does. Sadly, because it was an add-on, you were never going to see them writing in, well, this magic spell affects psionics this way. So magic users do kind of get the short end of the straw in those cases, but
99% of the time, magic users do not get a short end of the straw. So you know what? Every now and then, a magic user needs to get his brain sucked.
yeah.
I think it comes down a lot to just the Vance magic system. Like in D&D, and I've come to change my opinion on this over the past couple of years. I don't mind that there's a lot of just everything's a spell-like ability. I remember we were complaining about the
You were.
I was.
Oh, okay.
I don't like that everything is magic.
Yeah. We were complaining about it. What was it? The Bastions, and how like everything there was essentially, oh, you get the alchemy lab, you get this first level spell. You get the rogue lab, you get these first level spells. And so like I understand, and it's frustrating for me too as a person, but I understand why everything in D&D is based off everything's a spell. Okay. And the more I've gotten into it for the past couple of years, the more I've accepted it. It wouldn't be how I would design it, but I've accepted it for D&D core everything. I can explain it easily in Adventures League to new players. I can explain the weave, yada, yada, yada. So when it comes to psionics, like now you're introducing a magic system that on one hand isn't a part of that, the weave and all that shit, but at the same time, like you have established lore that it was created at the same time that the weave was created. So like, it's kind of hard to figure out exactly where it wants to lie.
In the current Unearthed, they just flat out say that it's just a type of magic, so it's part of whatever magic. The problem is that in 5th edition, like what's really its identity, and it doesn't really seem to have one, because almost everything that it can do, a wizard can already do.
Yeah,
so,
they do everything that way specifically for balance reasons. Everything has to be balanced. Nothing can be out of balance. You can't have too many things that are broken. Psionics in the beginning, early editions, it was kind of broken and it was wonky and it was weird and it did its own thing. Sure, sometimes it mimicked spells, but a lot of the times it didn't. And they don't want that for 5e. 5e has to be clean, narrow, and straightforward.
Yeah, and well, Psionics did have. Here's one of the issues, and I call this the Shadowrun problem, and only because this is not only in Shadowrun. Lots of other games have this issue where you have a system that becomes its own game. Like in Shadowrun, it's hacking. When you're doing the matrix and the decking and stuff, suddenly your decker is running his own adventure with the GM. Because they're like, oh, well, when you're a decker, your actions of the matrix on computers take so fast, so you take like 7 turns for every 1 turn people outside of the matrix take. So your table takes a turn, and then your decker's like, let me play by myself for 30 minutes here, while everyone else at the table just kind of looks at their phones or goes and gets a pizza. Psionics had the same issue, because when the two Psionicists would meet, for them to do anything, they would have to engage in mental combat, and mental combat was its own system of things where just these 2 people are doing things and no one else at the table, and you're just like, okay. And it's that constant problem of you added this subsystem on that doesn't interact well with things other than itself, and then you end up with, whenever you engage it, like the one character and the GM are playing a game while everyone else is waiting for them to finish playing the game so that they can also play the game.
So that is also part of it. Part of that issue stemmed, at least in D&D, not Shadowrun, because Shadowrun was its own damn thing. But in D&D, the problem stemmed from the old initiative system of, you have 2 roles, basically. You have the players get a single role for the party, and then the DM gets a role for the party. So there's not a proper initiative system of when people go. If you were trying to do that with a 5e system, okay, you have 2 psionicists locked in combat. Cool. What do you do on your initiative? All right, your initiative's over. Next person. Then this other psionicist gets their turn. It would work much easier that way rather than the 2 sides.
You're right. The old edition didn't have it because it was just okay. Those two to get to that turn, and then it's just those two doing stuff for a while everyone else twiddles their thumbs.
Yeah, today's initiative system would fix that problem, I think.
So when it comes down to psionics, like I know this Unearthed Arcana kind of brought it up again. I'm interested to see what they change, if anything, because honestly, it just didn't feel that interesting to me. And that's even a quote for 2024 Psionics. I just don't feel like it was ever interesting enough. It was just another subclass with extra whifty things, and it was in the later era of 5e, so it was more overpowered than in the older stuff, except for Battlemaster.
Yeah.
But one thing I found interesting though is while we were bringing this up and talking about it, Ed Greenwood had a video where he mentioned something about psionics and how they were trying to make it work and come back in the new system, and he wanted to talk about it, but he couldn't due to an NDA.
Right.
And then someone said, "Hey, what is the current status of what's his name? Sarador?
Yeah.
Sardior?
Sarador.
Sardior?
Like
I don't know. How do you spell it?
Sardior. So Sardior. Who was supposed to be the gem dragon, the father prince, the prince of all dragons. That was a gem dragon, and he died and got split up, and all the gem dragons that exist are currently small fragments of him.
Yeah, we'll go into that later.
Right.
Anyway.
But he mentioned it's I can't talk about that at all. They're doing something with that right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain if he was supposed to say that, but it is interesting to me that psionics has come back. Sarador is the guy that started psionics-ish in the lore, and it's changed a few ways.
No,
times.
That is definitely not true. That's just your
Forgotten Realms. Well, yeah, just in Forgotten Realms, but that's where I read it from. That's where I read it from my Dragon magazine. So
right, but this was Psionics was well before that dragon ever got mentioned or was created.
Like I said, that's what the Lord establishes now. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe they're going to bring him back.
I'm going to have to. Well, actually, you on that one. So Sardior actually was first mentioned in May 1980 in Dragon Magazine 37. So
that's an old magazine.
That is an old ass magazine. That magazine we're just reading all the Psionics issues with, the AD&D, and this Dragon Magazine 78. So it definitely attaching psionics to him. I don't know, but his first mention was Dragon Magazine 37. And I will definitely say, having read both the origin story in Fizzbands and also all of the different things that were written back in the 80s and 90s by Gygax and the people that followed him, none of that shit matches up. It has been retconned to hell and back. Yeah. Which is part of the reason why I have not presented my full ecology of dragons in the Draconic Pantheons, especially in regards to Bahamut and Sardior and Tiamat and the rest of the Draconic Pantheon, because it is confusing at best and intentionally, especially in regards to Fizzbands, rewritten such that they clearly. I mean, I think you're partially right here, Chris, that they have rewritten the history in Fizzbands, which only people who are really into D&D, deep in D&D lore and dragons in particular would even fucking notice. Because there's a cute little dragon origin story at the very beginning of Fizzbands, which is just kind of flavor text if you're just looking in the book for stats and feats and shit. But it completely rewrites all of Draconic history, all of it. And it's not just it, but the thing is, it's not just Forgotten Realms that is D&D. And it's explicit that Fizzbands is not just covering, Forgotten Realms, it's Dragonlance, because it's literally called fucking Fizzbands, who's from Dragonlance.
Yeah.
It's covering Greyhawk, because guess what? Guess where Bahamut was first mentioned? Not Forgotten Realms. Not
he comes
not anywhere else. He comes from Greyhawk.
Mm-hmm.
He comes from Oerth.
He's from Final Fantasy 3.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
No, like, so I'm interested. Like, the first major book they're coming out with for the 2024 5e is the Dragon book. So I'm very interested to see what they change. If any of it is good, if it's or for better or for worse.
I think they're going to rewrite stuff. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. Dragon lore is always interesting, and even the stuff that they rewrote and kind of just like made me head scratch about all the lore that I thought I knew about dragons, and I had to go back and look at it. And like, that doesn't make sense. That's not how that played out. And then, like, you know, yeah, they've completely rewritten it and retconned a bunch of shit because they're planning something. I don't know what it is yet, but it'll be interesting, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I mean, dragon lore, it's Dungeons and Dragons, so you got to be into dragon. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the name.
Yeah,
and they do dungeons all the time. So
yeah, Dungeons and Time a dozen. But since we're on dragons, since we went from psionics to dragons, I will say I'd like to begin with dragons back in the golden times, the 70s, when D&D first began. You guys cool with me at least starting the first part of my dragon history?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Part 1. Here we go.
Okay, so we're going to the way back here. We're going to go back to not AD&D. We're going back to OD&D, and we're going to go back to
White Box.
We're going back to White Box. We're going book 2, page 11 for those following along at home. And book 2 is Monsters and Treasures. And that it was part of the White Box. The ones, I think it's also in part of the brown box that Gygax and his family put together in their living room in Lake Geneva, and only made 1,000 copies of too. But it was reprinted many times, and there are a total of 2 pages covering dragons. Originally, there were only 6 varieties of dragons: white, which is cold breath weapon, obviously. Black, acid, nothing changed there. Green, chlorine gas, that's changed over the years, back and forth to different things. Poison gas, it gets less specific. Blue, always been lightning. Red, always been fire. Not gold, but golden, fire and gas. They've always had 2. And all they've really got going on here in these 2 pages about dragons is basically how their breath weapon works, because you got cones, you got line shaped, and you got a cloud breath weapon. And you have the different levels of maturity, 1 through 6, being very young, subadult, adult, old, and very old. Very old is actually only 100 plus years old as far as OD&D was concerned. And it does extra damage on their breath weapon. And also, the thing is, like, the age wasn't originally, other than affecting their breath weapon, didn't really do anything. Like, hit die was based on what color you were. So white was the weakest and gold was the strongest, with the red being just under them. They have an entire page and a half, and I shit you not about this, going over how to subdue dragons. It was the strangest thing when I read this. Subduing dragons. Any attack can be to subdue rather than kill, but this intent must be announced before the melee begins. When intent to subdue is announced, hits scored upon the dragon are counted as subduing rather than killing points. Each round of melee combat, the number of points scored in hits is ratioed over the total number of the hit points the dragon has. The hits obtained being stated as a percentile of the total possible, i.e. 12%, 67%. The percentile dice are then rolled to determine if the dragon has then been subdued. A roll equal to or less than the percentage of hits already obtained means the dragon is then subdued. For example, a very old dragon of 11 hit die red dragon is encountered asleep in his cavernous lair. 3 fighters creep in and strike to subdue. All 3 hit, scoring respectively 2, 3, and 6 points for 11 points total. Man, OD&D.
Yeah.
11 ratioed over 66 for a very old dragon. 66 hit points. The the hit points the dragon can absorb before being killed, or in this case subdued, is 1/6 or 17%. The referee then rolls a D100 to see if the dragon has been subdued. The dragon is not subdued and wakes up, and then turns around and decides whether he will use his bite or breath weapon on the second melee round, and so on. And then it goes on to, like, it continues, like, this, like, love OD&D and, like, the shit that they overthought. The value of subdued dragons. Subdued dragons can be sold for X amount of money going on an open market. Certain young dragons can be sold to powerful mages, blah, blah, blah. The length of subdual. The length of time a dragon will be subdued, at which point it will wake up and then try to escape or kill its master.
I want to mention real quick that these rules that you just read are the same rules but we use now to seduce dragons.
Seduce?
You heard it.
All right, you're gonna have to shut your mouth for the rest of this, okay?
Yeah. All I can imagine when you're talking about subduing dragons is freaking Steve Irwin going up to a crocodile and be like, "All right, now this here is a red dragon and they breathe fire."
Oh, crikey! I didn't bring my asbestos. I'm on fire now.
And then tried to jump on its head and like hold the mouth closed.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm gonna take my finger and my thumb. I'm gonna shove it in his butthole.
No more talking, Maples. No more talking.
That's That's the South Park episode. I just wanted, I wanted to say you have to always remember, first edition was simply about how much money can you make as your character.
Right.
So dragons they're just worth money.
Well,
you don't want to kill him.
So I mean, you're trying to kill a very old red dragon. He's got all of 66 HP. So anyway, it continues on after subdual for like another half page, and it says 2 or more dragons. If 2 or more dragons are encountered, they'll most likely be a mated pair of at least the 4th age category. If 3 or 4 dragons are encountered, they will constitute a family group of a male, female, and 1 or 2 young. The adults will be 4th or greater age, and the young will be of the 1st age. If the young are attacked, both parents will automatically use their breath weapons. If the female is attacked, the male will attack at double value until he is simultaneously attacked, and vice versa. That's crazy.
I still don't see how this is seducing a dragon.
So I'm ignoring you. So this gives you your first spec of sort of ecology of the dragon. At this point, it gives you its age, like it's very old at 100+ years old. So really, like at later editions, compared to later editions, like a dragon only lives about as long as an elf, and apparently gets killed actually by knights, just kind of going off and subduing them with like their swords, which is interesting to me. And they also give you a little information on dragon treasure. Basically, it's dragon treasures based on the age will have about half the treasure indicated for dragons for so adult, but double the treasure if it's very old. And that's it. That's all you get for OD&D. You don't actually hear about dragons again until Greyhawk,
which wasn't too. I mean, that Greyhawk was the first expansion book,
but it was still 2 years that you were sitting on. That's it for dragons.
Yeah,
and there was nothing else. And Greyhawk actually has a number of awesome things in it. The stats don't really change all that much. You've got a little bit more. You kind of go like there's no alignment in OD&D that is mentioned as far as the dragons go. But in Greyhawk, once you get there, you're going with the classic OD&D alignments of chaotic, neutral, and lawful.
Yep.
So they present here on page 35 of OD&D Supplement 1 Greyhawk additional varieties of dragons. First off, in the first sentence, there is only one king of lawful dragons, just as there's only one queen of chaotic dragons. And because Gygax was a dick, it literally says in parentheses, women's lib may make whatever they wish from the foregoing. I can't even believe that's in there. But
I can.
It's
1976, man.
Literally, this is what the sentence says, Waples. There's only one king of lawful dragons, just as there's only one queen of chaotic dragons, parentheses, women's lib may take whatever they wish from the foregoing. Basically, he knew
what the hell that means.
Basically, he was apologies, but not apologizing for the fact that he made the queen, made the big bad evil dragon a woman, a girl.
You just say, read into that what you will.
Yeah. And he's saying, read into that what you will. He was basically, yeah, I'm a misogynist. It's fine, and he didn't give a shit about women's lib, and we know that, and it's not whatever. This is a 50-year-old document at this time. So it goes on though. What's actually interesting about that, other than the latent misogyny, is the fact that he introduces other metallic dragons. So brass dragons are introduced, copper dragons are introduced, bronze and silver, and of course platinum, the king of the lawful dragons. Doesn't have a name yet. He's just called the Dragon King, but it does have something that you will recognize from later editions. The Platinum Dragon dwells in a great palace behind the east wind. Although he may appear in more mundane places at times, he may shape change freely, which is also the first time you hear about dragons shape changing. Becomes a big thing back in Dragonlance days, but this is 10 years before that, really. He may shape change freely, although none of the other 9th level spells are usable by him. The Dragon King is served by a guard of 7 gold dragons. His primary aim is to confront and defeat the ruler and hosts of the chaotic dragons. Which brings us to the Dragon Queen. No name again yet. The Dragon Queen. The chromatic dragon is a huge creature with 5 heads, one of each color of the 5 chaotic dragons. Her body is striped in these same colors, and her tail is that of a wyvern. She can employ all heads at once, either to breathe or cast spells. Her major abode is in a stupendous cavern far beneath the earth. Her guard consists of 5 dragons, each of the largest size of the 5 chaotic types of dragons. Her major aim is to spread evil. That is it. Period. That is all you get in Greyhawk. You don't get anything more for a couple more years.
Yeah, that was. They also changed it from Golden Dragon to Gold
Yeah,
Dragon.
because it didn't make sense. Because
yeah.
Then we skip ahead. This next one is in 1977, just a year later. AD&D First Edition Monster Manual. Page 29, AD&D First Edition Monster Manual for those again following at home. Dragons may come in many colors, shapes, and sizes. However, the chromatic dragon and the platinum dragon are singular individuals, and there are no others of their type. Each dragon sort will be treated individually hereafter. Just read that in Gygax's voice. It still actually has that entire passage about subduing a dragon, and it gives the example of subduing dragon and encountering multiple dragons. It has all of that stuff there. It does actually introduce another thing for the ecology here. It gives you a weakness of dragons. The innate cowardice of dragonkind is shown by the fact that most can be subdued. Dragons' egoistic nature makes them subject to flattery, and it also makes them more stupid. Makes the more stupid of them prone to attack other powerful creatures whom they view as disputing their dominating position. Greed and avarice are major motivating factors in all but the loftiest of dragons. So they are subject to manipulation by clever persons or the prospect of actual treasure and the promise of more forthcoming.
Bilbo Baggins.
But here's when you like, if you guys look through the OD&D or ever really played it, like the stats are just very difficult to really grasp unless you're really used to playing that edition. But here it has, like, these start looking like D&D stats. So you start with, of course, with Black Dragon, and for whatever reason they go full on like Latin, and the Black Dragon parentheses Draco Causticus Sputem. So it's the dragon that spits acid.
Yeah.
You have the Blue Dragon Draco Electricus, the Brass Dragon Draco Impudentus Gallus, which I'm guessing is
Wait, which dragon?
brass.
Oh, okay. So this is when they introduced
they
brass.
breathed they introduced brass in Greyhawk, but they didn't really define his stats until this one. It was
They existed, just didn't have stats.
Yeah, but it was only a year later when he ended up with stats for these guys. So the Brass Dragon also has 2 different weapons, 2 different breath weapons. They had sleep gas and a billowing cloud of fear gas, which is interesting. And they could also employ spells. Bronze Dragon, Draco Garrus Bronzo. Chromatic Dragon, but she has a name this time, in parentheses, Tiamat. And we have her first set of stats. First set of stats back in 1977 was 16 hit die, 128 hit points, 6 attacks, and considering what the stats of a first edition character are, like, you're not gonna defeat her.
What was her
She's
armor
doing-
class?
Her AC was a 0.
Okay,
She-
so that's only
they
like
had-
an AC. That's like an AC 20 these days. 20,
Yeah, so
22,
chill.
something.
So you'll see this change between editions, which is still a little confusing to me. So I literally just read to you about the Chromatic Dragon, and she's all about spreading evil and chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's now lawful evil.
Well, lost the chaos part.
Mm-hmm. That's weird, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it goes about her stats, blah blah blah. It doesn't really say much about her history, and it just says that just talks again about the description of her, about her 5 different chromatic heads and her stripy body. That's really all it goes through. Then you have Copper Dragon, Gold Dragon, Green Dragon, but let's get to what we want to talk about, which is the Platinum Dragon. Bahamut, the king of good dragons. Bahamut, the Platinum Dragon, dwells in a great fortified palace behind the east wind. No one knows for certain this place is on the elemental plane of air, or some place betwixt it in the 7 heavens or tri-paradises, save Bahamut and his court. So a little more information about where he might exist at this point. About 1/4 of the time, he roams the earth in the guise of a human or nearly any other form he chooses. For Bahamut is able to shape change freely. He can travel astrally or ethereally. It gives you some actual stats for Bahamut this time. He's looking like he's got 168 hit points, 21 hit die. Got breath weapons, magic. He's got a lot of spells, actually. He's able to employ spells 1st or 7th level, 2 of each magical, and 1 of each clerical per day for a maximum of 21 spells, which is a shitload.
Yeah.
He's lawful good. Intelligence, obviously, super genius, just like his sister. Although we don't actually go over whether they are brothers and sisters or whether they're just evil dragon, good dragon at this point. Really all it says about Tiamat, and I you can step back here for that because I missed this part. Tiamat rules the first plane of the 9 hells, where she spawns all of evil dragon kind. She hates all good as fiercely as she loves cruelty and hoards wealth. She is seldom outside of her lair, but occasionally she comes to Earth to place a new dragon or seek more treasure. She can travel astrally or ethereally. And that's really all you get about her.
So
Her description.
Here's a thing, and I don't know the timeline on this, but we know that the hells are where the devils live, the abyss is where all the demons live. I don't know if they had particularly separated them at this point.
They had.
What book is this that we're talking about specifically?
Monster Manual AD&D.
Okay, yeah. By that point they had. Okay, I thought we were still kind of further back. Yeah, okay. So that would make sense that she had gone over to lawful evil if she's going to be in the 9 hells as opposed to the abyss.
As you'll see later, like probably not this podcast, but in later ones when I talk about this, it kind of swaps back and forth, and the reasoning for it swaps back and forth too. It's a little weird, but a lot of it is just different writers doing different things with it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
she's always ridiculously badass. So she is like the end boss of end bosses, most definitely.
Yeah, I'm just glad they were at least consistent with the alignments with the locations.
Mm-hmm. And then it just kind of goes on about a little bit more about Bahamut and his guardians, his 7 gold dragons that hang out with him. And gives you a little bit more information on him. It says there are 7 huge gold dragons of the highest abilities and loyalty to serve as his guards, companions, and advisors to Bahamut. He seldom is without them. And a sage tells of encountering Bahamut in the guise of an old hermit with 7 canaries singing sweetly as they flitted about nearby. The sage relates that he would never have known that he was anything other than what he appeared to be, except that a group of ogres and trolls happened by to much their sorrow. Which is the first time you hear about the canaries. And that kind of gives you the image of what everyone kind of thinks about Bahamut and Tiamat in modern day D&D. And the rest of the original, the AD&D first edition Monster Manual, it just kind of covers all the classic metallic and chromatic dragons that you guys know about and love. I've done some additional research in between first and second edition, of which there's quite a bit of information in dragon. There's quite a bit of information in polyhedron, and you get all kinds of other weird chromatic dragons that are not of the 5. Like you get like yellow and orange.
Oh yeah, yeah. If
Basically
you go,
the mixed dragons, and then there's articles writing about the lost sister of Tiamat in Bahamut, and it gets really weird in the mid 80s, and then of course in I guess Dragon Magazine 37 is when you introduce gemstone dragons, which are the neutral dragons. And they later pick up psionics, but that's kind of a tale for another time. But that is your 1970s dragons. That's where you were coming up to 1980.
yeah,
1980 things get strange when you get gemstone dragons, and then it moves on from there. But there's all kinds of other books. Obviously, Jay and Christian just went off to grab their Council of Worms. There's also the Draconomicon.
Yep.
There is, in 3rd edition, there's Races of the Dragon, and there's all kinds of things that have different write-ups in it. And online, even back in 2003, there is a write-up on WotC's website about the legend of Sardior. So this guy has been around for a very, very, very long time. And Chris called him the Prince of Dragons, and he definitely back in 2003 had psionics.
He had it.
But-
The Gem Dragons here in Dragon Magazine 37 had psionics.
Yeah, the one I read, the article I read, I think was the Best of Dragon Magazine Volume 3 or Volume 2, and that's where I read everything about Sardior. So, and they mentioned psionics then.
Yeah, in this one, he's just he's kind of like an off-brand Bahamut. They just call him the Ruby Dragon. He's unique because he is the only Ruby Dragon, and he keeps a court of 5 Thanes, one of each of the neutral dragon breeds, so one of each of the gemstone dragons.
Yep.
Let's see. I can vaguely remember that there were no other gemstone dragons until he split up and made them.
That's not what this says. This is just this defines him exactly like the other types of dragons.
Maybe that's why they changed it, because it was too close to Tiamat or too close to
he's
Bahamut.
literally just they're the neutral dragons, and then he's the king of the neutral dragons.
Yeah.
That's
But anyway,
boring.
we can go over those guys later, because I also want to talk about the lost sister and the basically, because the chromatic dragon is the primary colors, and then you have the yellows and you have like orange and the purple dragons and stuff like that, and you have the secondary colors. Basically, the sister is the chromatic dragon of secondary colors, which is just, I don't know, weird. But it's things that definitely were written and people published and were officially published by TSR, so they're still in the lore there somewhere. And it's enough in the lore that one of the most popular D&D model makers, MZ 2450 Miguel Zavala, who's basically modeled every D&D monster that's been created from 3rd edition through 5th edition 2025, in addition to a bunch of MCDM stuff as well in Kobold Press and things like that. Somebody sent in a request about modeling Tiamat's lost sister with a description of her, and there's actually a really cool miniature of it. I can drop in the chat. But yeah. Well,
see
that's part 1 of Dragons.
that sounds like a thing that they should have been doing something with. I mean, you have a story of Tiamat's lost sister, and you've never done anything with this,
right?
Yeah, why would you?
That's just pre-built lore that has so much potential, and I've never even heard about it until right now.
Yeah.
So I feel, but you would feel that these they would go and do a deep dive into all the lore and start picking the best aspects of it. And man, held a potential overthrowing of Tiamat by her sister, or something of that nature could easily be an awesome storyline.
It might even be getting ahead of ourselves here, but there's a time period where both Tiamat and Bahamut die, and like time skips a beat and then they come back. But I'm like, okay, if they can die and come back, why not this sister that died?
Yeah.
Well,
And
yeah.
because there's like an official story about how she dies, which I don't want to get into yet, but I mean I want to save for next time. But it's interesting. It is a very interesting like draconic history.
And the other dragon gods.
Yes, the other dragon gods we haven't even touched on yet, because at this point in time, the Great Platinum Dragon and the Chromatic Dragon aren't actually gods.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just flipping through my Council of Worms setting since we had mentioned it, and I was kind of giggling to myself because for anyone who isn't familiar with Council of Worms, was a 2nd edition setting where you could actually play dragons. But the funny thing is, so you can play any of the metallic or any of the chromatic, and they have the gems, amethyst, sapphire, emerald, topaz, and crystal as playable races. You can also play a dwarf, elf, gnome, or half dragon.
So you would play those as the way that Council of Worms was set up is that every dragon was bonded to a kindred, and that kindred was like you basically had an elf or a dwarf as your familiar.
That's curious.
I don't know. It just screams. We've joked about Rifts, the Palladium game being very unbalanced, where you can play a juicer where you're just like Bane, or you can play a glitter boy where you literally have a giant ass robot with.
And that is just the core book.
So,
it works from there.
Yeah. Right. So the idea of Council of Worms was not that one person is playing like an elf. It was that everyone's playing a dragon, and then you also have a second character who is a humanoid.
Yeah, so when your dragon dies, you can play an elf.
No. So no, you would do stuff with your dragon, and then sometimes you would get to places where the dragon can't get to, and you would send your humanoid familiars out on missions, and you would play them for a little bit. But essentially, you were always playing a dragon. If your dragon PC died, their familiar dies too, and then.
Got it. Yeah, I own the book. I've never read through the entirety of it. I've just sort of. I
ran a short Council of Worms game for a little while.
Got it. That's it. Okay. Yeah, I was talking yesterday about all the 2nd edition stuff I have and haven't played. That's one I had never actually played before. Is Council of Worms.
Yeah, because they also get into it. You have so you choose like a dragon kind of character class where you can be a dragon priest or a dragon mage or a dragon psionicist.
Mage.
But each of them to become like, because normally like at 2nd edition at this point, like as you age category up, like certain dragons already get access to magic. Well, if you want to be a dragon mage, you sacrifice your innate magic to get magic sooner and have a lot more of it.
Got it. Yeah, I'm kind of curious how that works on the aging, because I noticed they've got the charts for all the different ages of dragons. But if you start out as a wormling, I mean, you don't hit that next tier until 50 years later or whatever.
The whole thing was the campaign. Yeah, you would play a couple of sessions of your campaign as your dragon, where much like adventurers, you have to hoard wealth, but instead of spending it to level up, you're spending it so that you can sleep on your hoard to age up gradually. And but the idea was the campaign was meant to be played in like skipping time. Like you would play a couple of sessions as a wormling, and then you would do like a time passes, and now you've slept on your hoard. Once you've accumulated enough of the hoard, you've slept and you've reached the next age category, and that you start again as okay. It's been X number of years, and you can tell a couple of things that might have happened while you were there. If you chose a familiar other than an elf, you had to see if they lived through it or not.
Shit, how long have I slept? Oh god, I slept too late. Is my human still alive? Oh god, he died.
Yeah, I died. I gotta get a new one. So
that makes so much sense. I was curious why it was half dragon, gnome, dwarf, and elf, but no human, no halfling. That makes perfect sense.
They only used the longer lived races, and they said basically the elves were generally the ones that were preferred, especially by like the higher order of dragon, because an elf could potentially last most of the dragon's lifespan, or even a dwarf, like it would get you a few of your age categories, but eventually that dwarf dies before you even get halfway through aging up to a great worm.
Yeah, it's like the difference between having a pet dog or cat or a parrot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh fuck! I left in the automatic food theater and everything, and still died.
But yeah, so you would switch back and forth, and you would play your dragon most of the time, and then you would do a couple of missions maybe as your familiar characters, just to play like more standard D&D. But
Yeah.
most of the time, you were there to play a dragon and engage in dragon politics and stuff.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I was very glad that they made something like that, but I don't know, playing a dragon never really appealed to me. But a lot of people did. So
yeah, it's fun as the idea of we're all doing this, and if you're playing like on like a short time session where they do a thing where you kind of play like you play one adventure in each age category. And you can kind of you play a 12-shot campaign, and you're doing one adventure as each time, and then you do some politics and other stuff. But yeah, it's meant for like kind of mostly short campaigns.
I did notice that they called them the I think it's the Children of Io, which is
Io won't be
'cause-
introduced until 1992, but he is the overgod of all dragons, above all dragons.
Yeah, well, Io is the overgod of Forgotten Realms.
No, that's AO.
That's
Oh,
AO. Different one.
I'm off by a letter. My bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very important letter. But yeah, I'm sure Dan will get into this later on. So
fair.
Yeah,
fair.
it gets pretty deep with the lore. And I just read through a major passage about the lost sister, or at least one of the lost siblings, is essentially after they've introduced Io. But we can get, like I said, we can get into it later.
Yeah,
and some of the art in this time period of the dragons, and it's just phenomenal too.
I mean,
'Cause
imagine
you got Caldwell and Elmore working for them at the time, and it's just
imagine a game about Dungeons and Dragons having a lot of information on dragons. Yeah, funny
Mhm.
that.
wait till we get to the Tin Dragon.
Oh man, yeah, I remember I remember like the Sand Dragon and all these weird dragons that came out of second edition.
Forgotten Realms had a lot of weird dragons.
Yeah.
Which was great. I mean, it was something else to fight, and you didn't
Sometimes
know it. Like,
clear. Sometimes it was great. Sometimes it was less than great.
what I mean is that, like, it in earlier editions, dragon. I mean, even in later editions, I guess. But if it's a metallic dragon, unless something's wrong, it's a good guy. If it's a chromatic dragon, unless something's weird, it's a bad guy. Like, you encounter a sand dragon or a topaz dragon or a purple dragon. Most people, unless you're a DM who's really read through a lot of these old books, don't know what the fuck that is. You don't know whether that's a good guy that you're just encountering.
If it's a color, it's evil. There are brown dragons and yellow dragons, and
you definitely don't want to encounter the purple dragon because it means your IT security has been breached.
yeah.
Yeah. I like throwing weird stuff at players anyway. So things like a sand dragon or just a purple dragon or anything like that that's gonna throw them off, and they're not gonna know what resistance is. They're not gonna know anything about this.
Because like we got a lot of grognards we end up playing with that they've read every goddamn book under the sun. Like, people can't just forget the fact that all the shit about D&D.
Have you encountered the Mercury Dragon?
I've not encountered the Mercury Dragon.
I would imagine it does poison damage of some type.
Yeah, you're supposed to take him in a lighthouse.
Yeah. Yeah, you weave it into a hat and then wear it.
We got a few minutes left. Do we want to hit up potion miscability?
I want to hit up your item.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me begin with that. So, I linked it, I think, in Discord.
In our podcast chat on Discord.
Yes, I did. Did I actually do it in the podcast chat, or are you doing the wrong one?
Yes, you did.
It's up there in the podcast chat, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, there's something else that was in there. Okay. So this is we've mentioned him before. Christian turned me on to this guy a couple of years back, but Griffin's Saddlebag Patreon, fantastic. If you haven't subscribed as a DM, it is worth your money to look at his back catalog of just weird items. They're not ridiculous items. They're actually really well balanced and, I don't know, perfectly the art for them always looks appropriate, like you would see it in an official WotC, DMG or something like that. Because
in fact, you can buy his book on D&D Beyond right now.
Yes, you can. And it's got like the watercolor in the background. But there's an item that I inserted into into my game, and they're in the final act of Rime the Frost Maiden, and they're getting pretty deep in exploring the ancient Netherese city there, and they end up in like the prison where there was an alchemy lab, and there wasn't much else written up for it, and I was like, I saw this cool item in my email. I'll throw this in there. Why not? Sure. The old alchemist somehow ended up becoming an intelligent, legendary item that is now just a basically souped up alchemy jar. So the name of the item is Mr. Bottle.
Yeah.
Is a legendary wondrous item. The sound of sloshing liquid can be heard from this flask whenever you swish it around, even if the flask is empty. You can use an action while holding the empty flask to speak the name of one of the following liquids: beer, honey, mayonnaise, oil, vinegar, water, or fresh salt, or wine. And when you do, 8 ounces of that liquid appears within the flask. Afterward, you can use an action to open the flask and either pour the liquid out or drink it. Sounds like an alchemy
Yeah.
jar. Not a big deal. Then there's a second portion of it. Create potion. Alternatively, you can use an action to name one of the magical potions below while holding the empty flask. When you do, roll a d100. If the result is equal to or less than that potion's success threshold, the flask then fills with 1 ounce of the named potion, enough for one use. Otherwise, the flask fills with 1 ounce of water. So it comes with potions, oil slipperiness, 80% chance, potion of clairvoyance, 70% chance, climbing 95%, diminution 60, flying 50, different percentages for giant strength, 40% for growth, different percentages for healing, mind reading, poison, resistance, water breathing. However, there's more to it. Mr. Potion isn't just an item. Mr. Potion is sentient. Mr. Potion is a sentient chaotic neutral.
Mr. Bottle.
Mr. Bottle. Mr. Pottle
Right.
is a sentient, chaotic, neutral item with an intelligence of 19 and a wisdom of 14 and a charisma of 15. It has hearing and dark vision, out to a range of 120 feet. It can speak, read, and understand common, and its voice sounds tinny and hollow when it speaks, during which time the flask's mouth opens and shuts cartoonishly. The personality is Mr. Bottle used to be a renowned alchemist whose experiments and misadventures eventually got the better of him. After centuries of being trapped within an iron flask, he managed to transform it into its current form from the inside. He has since forgotten his given name. Regardless, his passion for alchemy and potions remains unchanged. And essentially, if you continue to pour new potions into Mr. Bottle's mouth, the potion disappears, but then can be made again using the create potion property. So my party, much like every given party in D&D, especially those that have played like video game RPGs, what do you do with potions, guys?
You save them forever.
Yeah.
Until the
Save
game's
them
over?
until the game is over. Because you never know when that last encounter you're going to need them, and then by the time you remember you're done playing the game, you went, oh, I still have like 18 potions I never used.
So I had already adapted something that became official in 2024 D&D, which is basically just bonus action to use a potion. And I got taken it one step further. Like if you take a full action to use a healing potion, you just basically use the full amount of healing on it. So basically, you can get the full amount from a potion if you actually burn your action on it.
Well, that's cool.
Because I was trying to encourage people to actually use this crap that they've continued to just hoard. But then, like, they found this item, like, oh shit, we can feed this guy a bunch of our potions that he doesn't know. Oh my god, we can do that. So then they start feeding him a potion of speed and a potion of jumping and so on. So they're going into one of the final fights of the last act of Rime of the Frost Maiden, and I'm going around and like, okay, and I'd looked up, what potions could they possibly put into this, and throw a bunch of extra potions out there whenever they're looting this old alchemist lab. And I knew they'd be feeding it to it, and I want them to be prepared and make sure they use their stuff if they're going to go fight, souped up versions of the Frost Maiden and the big Demi Lich at the end of the Netherese city. And they know they're going into this fight against a Demi Lich, so everybody's like casting spells, everyone's buffing, everyone's drinking potions, and I'm like, hey, what potions are you drinking? What potions are you drinking? What potions are you drinking? And finally, one person drinks 2 potions. And I had read, like, it didn't even occur to me that you couldn't drink 2 potions, because like all my players, I would just always hoard my fucking potions too, and never really think about drinking more than one. But I've never really had that many potions, which is part of the reason I hoarded them, just in case, for the rainy day that I actually need that potion of clairvoyance as well as a potion of speed or whatever.
Never do.
But it never really came up. So there is something that is in D&D 5e called potion miscability.
Yep.
And it's at the very beginning of the potion section, the DMG. And according to Christian, I haven't checked it out myself, but it's been in there in the DMG since first edition D&D.
First edition, yep.
And this is the thing, like, and it's the same sort of thing for scrolls. And I knew about the one for scrolls. Like, if you fuck up on a scroll, there's a potential that something backlash happens. But at the beginning of potion section, it's the same thing: mixing potions. The character might drink one potion while still under the effects of another, or pour several potions into a single container. The strange ingredients used in creating potions can result in unpredictable interactions, and it gives you a D100 chart about what happens. And there's actually a fair percentage chance that both the potions work normally. 36 through 90 is they just work normally. But if you roll that one natural 100, only one potion works, but its effects are permanent. Choose the simplest effect to make permanent of the one that seems the most fun. For example, a potion of healing might increase the drinker's hit point maximum by 2d4 hit points plus 2. Or a potion of invisibility might give the drinker the invisible condition indefinitely. At your discretion, a dispel magic or similar magic effect might actually end this lasting effect. So basically, leave it up to the DM, have fun. But one is both potions lose their effect, and the creature creates a magical explosion in a 5-foot radius sphere. So they ended up having not rolling anything bad. It was just one potion or both potions lose their effect. So basically, like, they lost a potion of speed, which, like, if I knew they couldn't make another one the next day, that kind of sucks. You don't find many potions of speed, right? But they're like, okay, fine, I drink another potion of necrotic resistance, and like, what the fuck was that? And like, it's just it's table in the DMG. You can't mix potions together, and like, I have no idea about that. How would I know about that? Well, you do know a really intelligent super alchemist that makes your potions every day. That's in your pocket. You can ask him.
Yeah.
And basically, in the tinny voice, to read out the percentage chance of it working.
And
But
those effects in 5e are largely the same table from 1e.
yeah, there's something wrong with the table. It's fine. Like, it's actually like, even the worst thing that happens rolling is an +1, 40-10 force damage. By the
That's
time
a little different. In the first edition, it's you take 6 to 60 damage.
That's a lot in first edition, but by the time you're mixing potions in 5th edition, you can take 4 to 40 force damage, whatever.
Yeah, you're gonna take roughly 20 points. I think you'll be fine.
Because, like, it's only potions that last. Because you're not most people, like, there's a portion there that says, about mixing potions. Nobody's actually going to mix the potions together. Maybe an artificer or something like that, but nobody else is. It's going to be, drinking a potion of necrotic resistance and a potion of fire resistance, or something like that. That's what's going to happen. Because, like, if you drink a potion of healing and then drink a potion of fire resistance, doesn't matter. The potion of healing has already taken effect. It's instantaneous. So, but yeah, I just thought that was just interesting. One, I love the item, and I had to talk to you guys about the item. But two, like, it's just one of those things I did not even think about at all in D&D until actually Baldur's Gate 3. Whenever I was like, really, you can only have one potion active at the time? That's weird. And didn't think about it again until I read about Mr. Bottle, and then I looked up all the different potions. Like, really? How long has that been there? And Christian's like, hey, since first edition. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I like skimmed over that page like a dozen times when I was a kid and never even looked at it. Beyond that, I'm just like, whatever. I'm just trying to find out how much healing a potion of superior healing does.
I've seen it. I've never used it, since it's sort of a variant rule type thing, and
yeah.
Mostly I just get lazy, and in the middle of combat, people drinking potions. I'm not gonna think twice about it.
I kind of figured, like, they just found, like, this super potion, like, I gotta use this. Why wouldn't I use this? Like, it's been around for a while. Why not? So I thought it was interesting.
No, I love it.
It's not a game ending thing. It's just one of those unique things. Like, and it's one of those things that pretty much none of the characters would know not to do until they do it.
Yeah.
And you could roll the natural 100 and be invisible forever.
That would be
Terrible.
inconvenient.
That would be terrible. It's like
Hey, I need
somebody.
heal. Sorry, I can't
Hey,
see you.
could somebody throw dust at me or something? I can't. Yeah, crap.
Yeah, unless you're a rogue, and then you're just happy about it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So you need to be
Oh,
healed.
So you need healing.
Nobody can see your body hit the floor.
yeah, that's fair.
On the true sight or see invisibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to do this though because you said it so many times.
Hmm.
Call Mr. Bottle. That's my name. That name again is Mr. Bottle.
Good
Okay,
lord.
that was good.
It was in my head since you
No.
linked that up.
Okay,
No,
well,
Go Simpsons, man.
yeah, we're almost done here. One last thing, a friend of mine sent me a D20 Magic 8-ball conversion table. Somebody roll me a D20 real quick.
Got it.
This is
Four.
how we're going out. 4. All right, Magic 8-ball says don't count on it. All right, we're done here. Thanks
Bye,
for listening.
Craig.
Bye, Craig.
Bye, Craig.